Tenet is a complicated movie, with many answers hiding behind complex layers of time travel logic. But even still, not everything gets wrapped up so nicely. Here are the biggest questions Tenet left hanging, and what these apparent gaps in the story might mean. The climax of Tenet is a complicated combat operation during which two teams move in on the city where Sator grew up. He's hidden the algorithm there, with intentions to destroy it, and our hero's mission is to secure the algorithm in a temporal pincer move, which turns out to be precisely as cool as it sounds like it would be. Robert Pattinson's Neil is a part of the attack team that is inverted for the operation, while the protagonist is not, handling his part of the assault while moving forward through time with the military commander Ives. But as the operation begins to fall apart due to countermeasures prevented by the enemy, Neil breaks off from the team to work on his own, sprinting toward an enemy turnstile, sneaking inside, and inverting himself in time. The operation successfully ends with him using a Humvee to haul the protagonist Ives and the algorithm out of the pit in the closed city before the coveted device can be buried by the explosion Sator had arranged to keep the algorithm out of everyone's hands. We see that Neil is above ground throughout the entire scenario, but the red string and washer he keeps attached to his kit reveals the movie's final gut punch of an emotional twist. Turns out Neil is also underground, masked in a balaclava and seemingly dead on the floor when the protagonist is trying to get through a locked door. Just when things start to appear hopeless, this other Neil's body, obviously inverted in time, springs to life and saves the protagonist, opening the door for him at exactly the right time before sprinting away backwards. But if Neil has to get the Humvee up above too, that means that there are two Neils operating simultaneously, both having arrived from different timelines. When did that happen, and how? We can certainly respect Neil's dedication to the cause and his buddy the protagonist. It's clear that Neil's ultimate fate after the last moment the audience sees him is to die for the sake of the mission. Still, a little bit of a hint as to how Neil swings that after getting on the helicarrier would provide a little bit of closure, which neither the protagonist nor the audience gets to have. One huge unanswered question about Sator's nihilistic plan is, who in the future was Sator getting his intel and technology from? It could be the protagonist in a future we don't see. It's the first natural assumption to make, since he's directly or indirectly responsible for a whole lot of what happens in the movie's story. But if he was responsible for stringing Sator along as a very, very long con, it seems like an awfully risky scheme to secure the algorithm. It also runs contrary to his established morals of empathy and having an interest in keeping the algorithm in separate pieces, not together. The movie still needs the antagonist, so it's probably not the protagonist. You know what we're saying?
Oh, fanciful wordplay.
Indeed.
The arms dealer Priya is a heck of a conundrum. Her character is extremely important as she establishes a contrasting interest in pursuing the algorithm. She is ultimately an antagonist, but she thinks she is operating in conjunction with Tenet's ideals. At the end of the movie, the protagonist shares with her his revelation that she and everyone else is somehow working for a future version of him. If that's the case, then her purpose as a temporal chess piece appears to be as a vector of deliberately incorrect information. Maybe. Tenet's true purpose is to find people who would gather the algorithm, rather than keep it separated. How could Priya end up being wrong about that ideal, when she spends most of the movie in a place of relative status and knowledge? Was that the effort of people acting against the protagonist, or the downstream effect of something the future protagonist created himself? How many people like her are out there who are aware of Tenet, but not allied with the protagonist? None of these questions can be answered without knowing where Priya came from and how she came to learn about Tenet. The husband she uses as an avatar for her business as an arms dealer clearly doesn't know what Tenet is, since the protagonist is very careful to only use the hand sign and word in a clandestine way, and Priya talks to him about it with her husband well out of earshot. Basically, what's her story, and how does she end up in the unique position that she's in? The first act of the movie involves the protagonist being recruited for Tenet by his boss, Victor. Victor describes a Kiev operation that resulted in the protagonist's attempted death by cyanide pill as a test, which he passes. But beyond that, Victor doesn't know a lot about what Tenet actually is, and seems to conceive of the protagonist's objective as a shadow op to learn more about Tenet on behalf of the CIA. How can Victor test the protagonist for entry to a collective that he doesn't understand?
Welcome to the afterlife.
When the protagonist calls him in Mumbai, he refers to him as though he's no longer beholden to the CIA, and the protagonist treats the relationship the same way, asking for a favor from old allies. How did Victor learn about any of this if he simultaneously is aware of Tenet and yet is requesting someone else to go out on missions to learn more, and with an authority separate from the CIA at that? Because of the ending, we can appreciate well enough that the future protagonist is essentially recruiting himself through a proxy, and that's really all that matters for the story. But what was Victor's place in that long chain of events? According to the general conceit of inversion and how Tenet actually works as revealed by the ending, cluing the protagonist in on Tenet is an end result that we don't see the process of. All we get to know about Victor's involvement is through the most important action, telling the protagonist that he qualifies to learn about Tenet because of his sense of self-sacrifice. Basically, we don't quite understand where he truly came from, and he would have had to have some kind of journey himself to learn about Tenet at all that we never see. The grandfather paradox is kicked around in philosophical discussion multiple times throughout Tenet, and at the end of all things in this complex temporal labyrinth, it's worth asking again, did all of what happened happen once they're all done? Like, overall, it happened to some of them, sure, but does it still exist in the collective world? Neil's ultimate answer to the protagonist when he asks about the paradox is a big fat, I don't know. And that's probably the authorial intent of the question. We can't know, and we won't. Metaphysics aside, Kat has a scar no matter what. Sator ends up dead, and the items drifting back through time are still doing so exactly as instructed in the moment they are seen in the movie. These things must occur for the ending to happen, after all. It's heavily implied that the protagonist and his allies would have to continue performing missions like this in their lives, relative past and present alike, to maintain this series of events as we see them in Tenet to keep them true for themselves. It must continue happening, constantly, lest some misstep mean it does, indeed, become unhappened, or something. Our brains hurt too, it's okay.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
A big, weird-looking stick that represents math, that's what the algorithm is. But its fate is somewhat murky when you stop to consider the totality of the situation. Tenet ends in a manner that feels unambiguously happy. Our heroes have won, and space-time has been saved. But that victory can only be accomplished by successfully secreting the pieces of the algorithm away like Harry Potter Horcruxes between the protagonist, Neil, and Ives, who each got 3 parts. Where exactly would that be? People who know of Tenet are everywhere, and as far as we can tell, at all points in time too. And they aren't necessarily aligned with the hero's beliefs that the pieces should be kept apart. It's a tall order all on its own, made more complicated by knowing Neil eventually dies in a way we don't see in the Soviet city they just claim the algorithm from. Did Neil get a chance to hide all 3 of his pieces before he goes back to put himself there? Or is his place there, making sure he's on the other side of that locked gate to save the protagonist at just the right second, meant to make up for a mistake on his part? Tenet, as a protagonist intends to use it, is a very elaborate game of keep away with the algorithm. It's heavily implied that the good ending we see is something that has to be actively maintained through time by the protagonist and his allies. After all, the algorithm's creator, who also is a big unanswered question herself, originally hid the pieces, and that clearly didn't do any permanent good. The conflict of the day, encapsulated in Sator's world-destroying death wish, is over, but the greater conflict isn't. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite movies and TV shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.